as you can probably imagine, these three things aren't really cut and dry, and it can get pretty complicated trying to distinguish between the three. So my example with Facebook or running a social campaign kind of covers all three, right? So you have a Facebook profile, and that's an owned property. You can have total control over that as a brand. But when you're running ads, on the side or whatever, that's a paid campaign, right, on Facebook. Then when you're getting likes or shares or comments, that's all owned. So that's all earned. So you're going to be getting kind of all three, but they can also be helping each other. So you couldn't run a paid campaign or get earned media on Facebook without owning a Facebook profile. You also couldn't run ads without having a destination to drive those ads and traffic to. You can run paid campaigns to increase your likes or to increase your engagement. So they all work together. And that's just one example using Facebook as kind of a good show of the three. But it's really more about finding that ideal balance between the three categories. It can be pretty difficult determining how to best utilize budgets to find that balance, but the ultimate goal is to get as much earned exposure on your own channels with as little paid media as possible, right? Because you just want to spend as little as possible to get the best bang for your buck. However, it's usually pretty impossible to not spend anything on paid. Think about some of the biggest brands in the world, something like Coca-Cola. They run lots of paid media, and it's not because they don't have the awareness and the exposure. It's to supplement the things that they're doing already, and it's a strategic decision. So that's kind of the consumer theory that we want to bring into recruitment and really focus on how are you using your own channels and your paid strategies to get the most earned for that. So yeah, it's really hard to get rid of paid, but you want to use it strategically. It's about that smarter spend, as we mentioned. Then it's not really a top-down approach anymore. So at one point when you hear paid, earned, and owned, you thought, create the owned channels, buy some media on paid, and then you get earned, right? It's kind of this top-down theory, but it's not like that anymore. Now it's this really integrated strategy between the three that'll help you better tell your employer brand story while you're leveraging all these new technologies that are in the space and you're operating at scale. So with all of that said, what we can't forget about is the candidate. How are they experiencing the process with your brand and your recruitment strategies? What are the touch points? It all plays a role, but the biggest part of candidate experience is that candidates don't differentiate between the channels that they're using. And so if you're not being consistent with your brand and your messaging across all channels and all devices, your candidates, your employees are going to have this fragmented negative experience. And it's really just the positive experience that turns owned and paid media into that earned value. Kai, did you want to add anything to candidate experience?
No, I think that was really great, and I guess the example that is so simple that kind of comes to mind is really, you spend money on paid media to drive someone to, a career site, which now we're talking about an owned channel. When they get there, if they have a great experience, they're going to be much more likely to then share that on one of their social channels, or maybe send a link to a friend, and that's earned, right? That's what we want. If they come to that owned channel and they have a bad experience, they're going to be a lot less likely to share it and to tell somebody about it, and that's really kind of the difference there and why candidate experience is so important and how it kind of crosses over. So that's the example that I really like.
Yeah, and I think just kind of building on that, I think that what we're seeing is kind of many brands are trying to reinvent themselves. And as they're reinventing themselves, they're asking the question, which is, which channels are going to have the biggest impact on our business, and which channels are going to have the biggest impact on the candidate, and what does the candidate want? What we believe is kind of candidates want this kind of uninterrupted engagement. It shouldn't be forced. It shouldn't always be pushed. It's got to be a two-way, uninterrupted engagement. And the brands that kind of do that the best really are offering kind of this distinct value that every time you get there, you're met with kind of this great surprise and this great energy, and you really kind of learn a lot about about the brand, and you kind of want to spend time with the brand because they're doing a really good job of kind of leveraging all three of these channels, and each one is kind of working hand in hand. And I think it's really important that for everyone on the webinar that as you're kind of thinking through your strategy and where you're at today, as we talk to candidates, that's what they want, is that uninterrupted engagement. They want to kind of build those relationships and see, you know, what it's really like in a you know, unique environment.
Yep, exactly. And that's actually a great point. As Ian and Kai both mentioned, you know, your audience and your candidates, you want to be putting out the best content and channels possible for what they're doing. So understanding your audience is going to be a key component of developing your most effective integrated strategy. And that's mainly because your audience and your candidates, they have control over what they're consuming, when they're consuming that, where and how. So we have to understand those behavioral aspects of your ideal candidates and your employees. So that would be those that you're looking to, you know, join the company, who fit with your culture and align with your purpose. You have to understand them so that you know what kind of content to create, where to put it online, or, you know, wherever, whatever they're using as a media, and to provide them with the best quality experience based on the people that you're trying to reach. So it really is about understanding your audience, but also understanding your brand to develop this really integrated and effective strategy. So again, it's ultimately about producing the most earned or gaining the most earned exposure using your own channels and supplementing that with paid as you need to. So just to point out a few major areas of opportunity, these are some things that you could quickly think about in each area. I'll start with owned. You know, you want to just make sure that all of your own properties are authentic to your employer brand and that they produce a positive candidate experience. If there's something that you own, whether it's a social channel or your career site or a mobile app or whatever, and it's not giving out the best experience to your potential candidates or employees, you definitely want to look at that and see how you can improve the experience overall. And then when it comes to media and paid, you want to analyze, you know, what are we running and what are we paying for that's contributing to our earned exposure and what isn't. And it's that what isn't that you might want to reevaluate, because if it's paid and it's contributing to your earned, it's going to bring a bigger benefit and a longer-term value. And then when it comes to earned, some of the quick things you can look at are going to be, you know, how is your SEO? How's your employee referral program, and what kind of people are your employees referring? What's your engagement and your network on social media? Are people aware of you as an employer, and how are you engaging with your talent pool? So those are just some quick areas of opportunity. And what we think about here are things that are going to, you know, kind of make that earned bubble so much bigger with little to no ongoing effort or costs to support.